Hello, friends. How are you? How's things? How's life? How's stuff? How's your world? You should let me know in the comments. I thought we were done talking about games. Well, we're not. I'm never done talking about games. But today I got a question, not about Gen Con. So today is, well, it's tangentially about Gen Con. But I got a question from a viewer that I want to answer because I think it is important. And let me find my screenshots folder. Here it is. This is a long one. I'm just going to read the whole comment to you. This is from Michael in the Netherlands. I'm not going to try to pronounce that, Michael. As an FLGS owner, I have a question. Firstly, I agree about the fact that there's so much diversity in games that big hype is nowhere to be found. So, talking back to my Gen Con talking points, I think that the hype, there are so many microcosms within the tabletop gaming industry as a whole that there really isn't, we can't have a new Ticket to Ride every year that suddenly all gamers buy that game. That's not really a thing that's going to persist in the future. Will there be another Ticket to Ride? Yeah. There'll be another huge game that breaks all records. It's going to happen. It wasn't this year. And, whatever. And so I was forgetting the point that tabletop role-playing was a huge part of Gen Con this year. Miniature gaming is a huge part of Gen Con. Board gaming was a huge... I'm just... Kind of a lot of my perspective is over the past 15 years, board gaming has been the dominant market at these conventions. Not the case anymore. Or maybe ever. I don't know. Maybe I was a skewed perspective. Anyway, he says, as an owner of a board game store, I also have the feeling that we are getting to place fourth or fifth in the selling chain. Crowdfunding, companies' own sales, conventions, and big internet, and then maybe the FLGS. My biggest selling game company is now doing their own sales days, being at all conventions... There are more and more, selling at their own online store with big discounts, and all their hits at big box shops and Amazon big box shops and Amazon at my buying rates, meaning that they're selling their games online for what he could buy their games for, and that doesn't make any sense. They are now getting fewer and fewer space at my shop. I'm forced to be called to the new, and quantities I max at 40 euros, but between 12 and 30 is a chance for a hit. We're doing very well as a shop. We adapt, but it's getting harder and harder in the board game space to see the positive. My question is, are FLGS spots 4 or 5 in the chain for board game companies? And if so, what can we do about it? Michael. So, some bad English in there. Forgive Michael. What he's saying is, at least in his experience, gamers are going online for their buying power because they can go buy a game from Amazon for the same price that he pays for it from the distributor. Or I don't know if there's distribution in the Netherlands. Europe is usually distributed through companies. Here in the United States, I can tell you I absolutely want the board game store to be the number one audience. They're number one in my line, and I'll tell you why. Without the board game store, my games don't have reach. They only reach the people who are looking for them, or the people who are looking for something tangentially related that I happen to stick in a keyword filter for advertising. They're not getting a broader reach. So here in America, we have distribution. There's 3 major distributors and then a few smaller ones. We have Alliance, we have ACD and GTS. Those would be the major board game distributors. I would say PhD. I guess PhD is a close fourth, but it's still a much, much smaller distributor. And then there's lots of little ones. Distribution is, I sell my games to distribution. Distribution sells the games to game stores. And of course, along that whole chain, there is markup. I'm selling my games to a distributor for a much lower price than what you're paying for it at the store. The distributor is selling the games to the retailer at a markup, and the retailer is selling it to the customer at a markup. As a consumer, I understand that the price that the retailer is setting is based on their need to keep their lights on. It's based on the price they were able to purchase that game for, which is based on the price that the distributor needs to sell that game for in order to make a profit and keep their lights on. There's a whole bunch of processes in this chain. Personally, I wouldn't mind selling direct to retail. Portal Games used to. We used to have a sales manager who that's what he did in the U.S. He did direct sales to larger Well, to any game store that wanted to purchase. And I got a lot of questions this year from game store owners if we would do direct. And my answer to those are, yeah, if you can order $500 or more at a time from me, I would facilitate those sales. I would gladly take on that responsibility for the few dozen retailers in the United States that want to do that, and I will sell them. I'll sell our products to them at a very good rate, probably better than they're getting from distribution, but I can't guarantee that. We'll have to settle on terms. But for me, I have said before, way back when I first started working with Portal Games, I started attending our business meetings. I talked to a whole group of retailers and I said, "You are my salespeople. You're my sales staff." And I got some pushback from that. They didn't like being called that. But it's the truth. Like, the truth of the matter is, those game stores are my platform. That's where people walk into a store and they see my product. And I want that game store to exist. Period. I want that game store to be a place that sells my products, that people can go to and see my products and see people playing my products and purchase my products. I want that very much. I don't know what it's like in the Netherlands, but at least here I don't see a lot of online sales for deep discounts anymore. Miniature Market used to be the place for that, where you could go buy it just above distribution. They took on that Amazon model of cutting out everybody else and selling at razor thin profits, hoping to sell thousands upon thousands of games to make their margins. I think that's a really gross thing to do. As a retailer or as a publisher at our online store, we sell the games at a value that we feel is correct for that game. Typically, that's MSRP, especially for the first, year or whatever. Only once games start really getting stale, the line starts becoming stale, or the game just stops selling, do we start cutting prices. Because it's not fair to the people who purchase the game at margin and then are trying to remove it from their shelves. But I can tell you, I saw a lot at Gen Con. I saw a ton of people say, "You're selling it for this? Well, it's this much on Amazon." Okay, like, buy it from Amazon. I don't know what you want me to say to that. I'm not going to say, "Well, great, I'll sell it to you for that," because what happens on Amazon? I don't know. It could be a distributor selling on Amazon at crazy discounts. I'm trying to make a living. I bought a whole crew, hotels, paid almost $7,000 for my booth this year. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't sell everything at cost. That's not a thing that I'm going to do. For me, retailers are still the top of the list because you're the easiest way, and that's me being a jerk by saying that I'm taking advantage of you, but it's the best way. Let's say that. It's the best way for my games to get in front of an audience because I can't be in front of all the consumers. Now, as a consumer, I can tell you, unfortunately, in my current situation, the game store is the last place I go to when I'm purchasing a game. Mostly because there isn't one. There's not one in my area. There is one that's probably a half-hour drive from here that sells a decent selection of board games, and if I go there and order, they might get it someday. But I would rather just order from the publisher. In fact, I think maybe in all of my time in board games, I've bought 2 games off of Amazon, and that was only because the publisher did not have it in stock. If I'm going to purchase a game online, I'm going to the publisher directly because I know that the publisher is charging MSRP, so they get all of that money. If I go to Amazon and buy it, even if it's below MSRP, the publisher is only getting distribution rates. That could be as little as 50%. And by the time you cut out manufacturing costs, the publisher is not making very much. So if I do go purchase, I go purchase from the publisher. Or I go to conventions. The vast majority, especially in the last 6 or 8 years, the vast majority of games that have come into my collection have been through publisher deals at conventions or trading with other publishers because I have products they want. That's a very common thing to do. But as a publisher, I very much want the game store to succeed. I just happen to live in a really tiny area where a game store isn't a viable there's not enough people to support a game store in this area. There's a card shop close by, Walmart, Target, Barnes & Noble, and there is a game store, but they don't, it's more or less a card shop that has some games. And very rarely do they have anything new or exciting, unless I go ask. So I'm part of the problem as well, right? I would like to say that the game store is the foundation of this industry. I believe that. I honestly believe that. But as a consumer, I don't take advantage of one that's a half-hour drive from here, and I probably should. I should probably make an effort when I'm up that way to stop in and maybe pick something up. Even if it's just sleeves or something, just to say I appreciate you. But I haven't made that a priority, and I haven't honestly purchased games very much in the last decade. So I hope that answers your question, Michael. It's a tough question to answer because, I think all retailers are suffering. If you come to my town, there are so many stores in this town that used to be these amazing little mom and pop shops that no longer exist because we have Walmart, we have Ace Hardware, Tractor Supply. All the chain stores came in and killed the mom and pop shop because the chain stores can undercut everybody else because that's just the way that commerce works. And the average consumer is not willing to pay more when they could pay less. And as a game store owner, that's working against you, and that sucks. I don't know that there's a solution. I think the solution is just being more proactive and doing what you're doing. Like you said, you adapt. You're carrying those games that can be impulse purchases, and maybe leaving the bigger games to the Kickstarters or to the customer comes in and asks for a specific product. I think that we've all, as a consumer base, gotten used to the idea that we can order on our own and we no longer have to go to a store and ask. If I want to buy a lawnmower part or a part for my motorcycle, I don't have to go to the dealer anymore and ask them to look this part up. I can just do it myself and order it. And that's what I do. And unfortunately, that means I've cut them out of the transaction. That means I cut the board game vendor out of the transaction. And that's just the state of things. And it sucks. I understand that it sucks very, very much. From both sides, Hope that answers the question. I'm not sure. Further questions, comments, please put them down below. Let's continue talking about games. I'm enjoying this. I want to play some games, but I have a new baby, and I haven't had a lot of time to have people over in my life because the new baby is taking up a lot of my time. So hopefully soon I'll get to play some of the games I brought back from Gen Con. We shall see. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Please subscribe if you're new here. We're trying to get back to 25,000. I was at 25,000 subscribers about 6 or 7 years ago, and I've been slowly going down ever since. And now we're on an upward trend, and I'd like to keep that going. I appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow. Today's 1,000 plus little things happy, successful people do differently. We have been learning 20 things to start doing in your relationships. Number 19. Ignore unconstructive, hurtful commentary. No matter what you do, there will always be someone who thinks differently. So concentrate on doing what you know in your heart is right. What most people think and say about you isn't all that important. What's important is how you feel about yourself. This is one I have to constantly remind myself of on both sides of that coin. Meaning that I have to stop taking comments personally, but also meaning that I have to stop being critical openly, unless asked. Because I am a hypercritical person, and I know that, and it's very off-putting. And nobody wants that information anyway.